Greetings. Welcome to week 2 of web design. This week, we're going to be looking at the basics of web architecture and looking at building structure and maintaining applications. You can begin to see how professional developers organize their projects for clarity and for scalability. We're going to be talking about express routing. We're going to be talking about templates for handlebars, and we're going to be talking about the introduction to model view controller architecture. Specifically, as far as express routing, what we're going to do is we're going to look at different requests, specifically the GET and the POST. And we're going to use route parameters and show how we can make applications dynamic by being able to substitute information in parameters that we pass across for information. Expectations out of this week. Looking to be able to get you to practice creating multiple routes and rendering views during handlebars. How we organize, begin structuring our projects to follow the MVC conventions, and connect. How do we prepare to explain how routing templates and MVC work together to solve client requests? By the end of the week, you should be comfortable with building routes, rendering dynamic pages, and understanding the foundation of MVC architecture. So let's get started. Okay, so we talked about last week, we talked about the good old slash. Okay, so this week we're going to go into a deep dive into what that slash actually means. Think of the URL of a file system path. Slash would be the root directory, that very, very top. When I call a website, this is the first entry point. So if we look at the slash by itself is the root directory. Very top of the folder, /about, you'll see that basically it's a subfolder. So we would go to the route of /about and we would see what's there. And based on what's there, we're either going to have dynamic content coming out of that or static content coming out. Since it's an about page, which is just general information about maybe a company, okay, this is probably going to be more likely going to be static content where it doesn't change no matter who is requesting the information. Okay, so if slash means the root, then the question is, how does Express know about what app or what folder is at that root? You can think about it this way. The root in Express is not like your computer's folder tree. You know, where you have a folder and under that you have another folder and subfolders. The root in Express in web server basically means the root of the website. So whenever you do call a URL or click on a URL, that entry point into that website, that is the slash. So for example, if your server runs on HTTP localhost 3000, okay, then if your site is deployed at that particular location, and that particular location happens to be the computer that you are on or the laptop that you are on, okay, then that is where you would start. If, for instance, other instances, if you went HTTPS and you went to something like example.com, okay, then example.com would be the entry point, okay, into that website. So what Express is doing is mapping slash to the home page of your running application and not your operating system. Okay, so looking at here, we're kind of talking about, sorry about that. We're talking about HTTP localhost 3000. The URL is your own machine, localhost, on port 3000 requesting a root a path slash. It's an example, or it's exactly the route of your code handles. App get. When we look at this, and we'll go into more detail of this, but the slash is basically saying, where is the route? Okay, so here we're talking about the route. Here, once we get to the route, we're asking the web page. We're asking JavaScript to say, okay, send me a home page. Send me, in this particular case, we're really not getting a home page. What we're actually getting is the verbiage home page. So if you visit //localhost 3000 in a browser and your server is running, what you're going to actually get is the characters home page. As we go further along, you're going to find that what's in that particular folder is actually code that I'm going to be executing. Maybe reading some databases, maybe not. Maybe formatting some HTML. But coming out of that send, that's the response. So it's res.send, give me a response. Here's the routes, this is where you can find, this is where I want you to go, is slash. Slash is being that very top of your website. So get versus post. Get, and we kind of reviewed this last time, get retrieves data. Okay. An example, browser requests a web page. Post submits data, changes the state. For example, if I enter some information and I'm sending the form over to be processed, that would be an example of a post submitting data. Analogy, get asking for information, post sending field forms. Kind of straightforward. Okay, defining routes in Express. Each route matches a specific URL method. So I kind of mentioned this before, that when I enter into the route, okay, in that route is a location. In that location is instructions for the code that I want to be sent back. So here, if we look at apt-get, we got apt-get is composed of two pieces, the path and then the callback. Okay, handles HTTP requests, GET requests. Here's an example, apt-get /. This is I'm going into the top of the website, and what I want to do is once I go in there and I go to the top of it, I want to send out the verbiage home page. So that's what's happening here. Okay, the path is the /, the callback is the send. Same thing here on the post. We have the path and the callback. An example, app.post /login. Okay, here's a little different. This is saying I'm not going in the very top of the web page. What I'm going is some sub areas or some subfolders that has, this particular case, handles the login information. So when I go down to this location, what I'm doing right now, but definitely not in the future, what I'm doing is sending some verbiage, login submitted. Okay, that's what's happening here. Not really sending back anything. So /login is the path. The callback is the send of the verbiage. Here, app.get. Okay. App.get is the application. That is what we're basically going to be executing as far as the name of your application is concerned. We're going to get into later on, whether that really needs to be app or whether that can be your real name of your website. But right now, just take it that this is the application. Think of it as your server program that listens for requests and decides how to respond. So this particular app is basically monitoring. Did anybody send me a route? Did anybody send me a route? Did anybody send me a route? Eventually, when you see here, you got your path. Somebody is sending something that says /. Okay, this is starting at the very beginning of the website. When you get there, what I want you to do is send a verbiage home page. Similar to what we were talking about before, but here we're adding the application, the specific application that's going to be executed. In this particular case, this is where we're adding an Express. Okay, so we start out with Node. The instructions that we had given before were in Node. Now we're talking about how do we get Express involved. Okay, So here with Express, what we're doing is we're putting some dynamic content, okay, with this call of the route. So in this particular case, we're looking at, we get app.get, okay. The the route here is hello, okay. So it says, I want you to look in the hello folder, okay. And in that, I want you to substitute this name, okay, where you see name, okay. So this is, again, this is the route, okay, and this is the response. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take name, grab name from the URL, and I'm going to send it through a message. I'm going to say hello $name. And so whatever name I pass, that's what I'm going to be basically using here, similar to a hello world. This is hello Mac. Okay. So here we're doing an app listen. Okay. So we're waiting. When we do the app listening, we're waiting for a route to be sent to us to give us some instructions what to do. Okay, and notice that I just want to make sure you're aligned here in that we're not concentrating on actually writing the code for the route. Some would, but that is not our primary purpose. The primary purpose, the primary purpose I want you to realize is that this is the format that I can use to pass information through the route. So if ever you're on your project, for example, you say, well, I need to pass some information through my route. You can put this in your list of things to do, put it in your notes, put it in your cheat sheet, and notice that, yeah, I remember that we did that. We did go ahead and pass parameters via the route, and that's what I need to do for my project. So again, that's what I'm looking for you to keep track here of what things are doing and how you can use them in the future. Went backwards. Sorry about that. Okay, route parameters. Okay, route parameters allow dynamic values in the route. Example, user. Okay, again, that's our route, and we're passing an ID. App.get user ID. What I want to send back is the user ID and the parameter. Okay, so I'm basically sending out some verbiage that says user ID, whatever the parameter I sent. Maybe it's user ID MN2555. Okay, so that's what would be here in the parameter. Again, here, the important thing is this is the way that if I ever need to pass a parameter, this is how I want to do it. Okay, so next thing I want to talk about is handlebars. Okay, handlebars lets you embed variables in logic inside HTML. Okay, so rather than just have static HTML, what handlebars lets you do is say, okay, I want to put some placeholders. And I want to put some placeholders in various locations in the HTML. And when I call the HTML, I'm going to tell you what do I want to put in those placeholders. Okay, so here, purpose of template engines, to separate HTML from application logic, enable dynamic content rendering, reuse layouts for consistent structure, and easier to maintain and scale the websites using templates. In this particular case, we're using handlebars, a popular template engine for Express. Okay, layouts and partials. Okay, so layout, here's an example of what we're talking about. We have a layout, we have a main HTML wrapper. It has a header, it has a footer, and it has a body. So example, we'll have main.hbs, which is handlebars, with a body placeholder. Okay, a layout is the main HTML wrapper that kind of defines the common structure of the pages, and things like your header, footer, and navigation bar. So all the pieces of your HTML is defined in the layout. Okay, every page you render, okay, like home.hps, about.hps, okay, each one of those, again, are basically HTML that we're going to insert inside the layout where you put the body placeholder. So think of it as a frame, putting a frame around this HTML. And when I actually call it, I'm going to be substituting information into that body. This you can do this as what this is kind of laying out here is that you can do part of a HTML layout. Okay, so maybe you're just looking at the navigation bar, and that's the only place that you're going to be making changes or making substitutions. You can go down to a level that says, okay, here are the changes I need to make just for the navigation bar, and I'm not going to try to do the whole body and substituting that information. Like this promotes DRY principle. Don't repeat yourself. The reason we're doing this, the reason we're doing these substitutions is that if I have another program that has a nav bar, okay, and I need to do the same thing, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. Okay, I could just take the nav.hps, okay, use it, again, not repeating myself, so that it's the code that I actually write for the templates, for the handlebar templates. We're doing this so that we only have to do it once for multiple programs. Okay, installing and configuring handlebars. Installing, we have npm install express handlebars. Again, we're still basically talking about chapters 1, 2, and 3, and spilling over into chapter 4. Okay, we're setting up an app. You know what we're doing, and it's what we're doing in the app. We're basically taking handlebars. This is the instruction for us to bring handlebars into Node and into Express. Okay, our app engine, we're just designating that HBS, we're going to be using that as the engine. Again, not really that important. This code here that we're putting in is standard. Okay, this is a copy and paste. Okay, to get this in. You know, if you do want to know the ins and outs of this, that's fine. You can let me know, and we'll look it up, and we'll go line by line for the explanation. But here, the most important thing is this is where I initiate handlebars. This is one, again, those services that I talked about. I want a service that will implement handlebars for me. This is that service. Okay, and the templates, since the templates have to do with HTML, the HTML has to do with viewing, then what we're going to end up doing is taking the templates, the HBS templates, and putting them in the view folder. And I have to learn in doing online that I have two screens, and I have to make sure I go to the right screen first. Okay. But here we go. Here we go. We have a constant, we're creating a constant EXP HBS requiring handlebars. That's bringing handlebars into Express, imports it in, allows Express to use the handlebars and the templates in the handlebars. In this particular case, right here, we're registering handlebars as a custom view. Okay, a custom view engine. So we're enabling the code, okay, for Express to say, okay, I can use handlebars in Express. We do a lot of this in JavaScript, is enabling content, okay, within various pieces. Example, you can now name files home.hps, main.hps, instead of home.handlebars. Okay. So basically what we're doing is we're taking HBS view and we're setting handlebars as the default template. Yeah, is that really that important that I know exactly what it does? No. What you're more concerned with is, yes, in general, any access to Express, Express is going to need to have that particular capability basically enabled inside of it. Okay. Live demo rendering variables. Here's an example. We have a template, a home.hps, and basically it is HTML that has a welcome and a name. Here we're expressing the route. We're saying when we go into the top of my web page, what I want to do is come back, okay, with a home. In home, let's say, and then we're going to come back with the name Alice. Okay, so this resident render basically is going to come back with welcome, and we're going to plug Alice in. So if you look up here, here's our welcome. Here's our Alice up here, and this was just defined in the home.hps. The resulting of that is when I do call it, okay, I'm giving the name during the call. This is a request. Okay. So I got the request. I'm saying send a response. I want you to render home, name Alice. So we're plugging name into Alice into name, and we come out, the browser's going to say hello, Alice. Okay. And this is how we use HBS. How do we substitute things into handlebars? Here, it's one. So we got 2 pages in here that they shouldn't have. Okay. File organization. Okay. Keeps code structured, readable, makes collaboration easier, helps maintain large projects. How do we organize data? How do we organize the folders that we've been talking about? Okay, so that it makes access easier. Okay, we're going to do that via model view controller. Now, model view controller, even though we're specifying this here as a quote unquote web design feature, this is a common view of things that's basically used with any kind of programming, any kind of systems that we're putting together. The model represents handling the data and the business logic. So, for example, database queries, calculations, manipulations, looking up and searching for information. Okay, that's the model. The view defines what the user sees. HTML. Okay, I will put various HTML in the view folder. Anything that has to do with letting the user see or control what the user sees, that falls into the view. The controller connects the model with the view. Okay, so we have the model, we have the view, and we have the control, or the controller. So the controller receives requests, calls a model, and sends data to the view. If we looked at the flow of the whole process, we have the requests. The request will go to the controller. The controller will bring in the model. The model will send information back to the controller. The controller will send a view, okay, back from the controller, and then basically send it as a response. Controller receives the request, model processes the data, view formats the output, and response sends the data back to the client. Okay, example, moving routes into controllers. Okay. Here, I want you to look at, this says this without MVC. Basically here, we're just talking about the syntax, okay, of what we do if we don't or aren't using MVC versus what we do if we are using MVC. Okay, so we have here, we're basically having a request that we're getting required controls like users. We're going to that route. We're doing the app get from there, from the users, what it's doing within that folder is giving me a list of users. Okay. And here I'm sending that information back that says, okay, here are the users that were created. Okay. So here again, here's my route. Okay. Here's my response. Okay. Here. Again, key thing I want you to remember is, okay, what is it doing and when can I use it again? Okay, here is where, there we go. Okay, here's where we're talking about the structure, okay? So without MVC, where things live, routes, business logic, data access, mixed, they're all mixed together and put in route files, okay? So there's really no organization. I can put anything anywhere, okay, that I want to, okay, with non-MVC implementations. So if we're talking about here, you're thinking about here, here's a structure. It has a project. It has the app.js, which is our application information. And then it has views. It has a layout. Okay, I have the main HPC, and we have a home, main HBS, and then we have a home HBS. Okay. So here we really haven't organized anything. Basically, we're putting information where we want it. Okay. Ideally, okay, what's going to happen here is for small applications, it really doesn't matter. Small applications are not big enough to worry about. But as your application gets bigger, okay, it's more important and most important that you start organizing the information in using a MVC methodology. Here, we're just talking about, in this particular one, we're enabling Express, and then we're basically implementing HBS, handlebars over that. And here we have the route. And we're saying, what do we want to do? What is our response? Here it says mixed business logic and data retrieval right here. Okay, so basically we're saying that where we're getting the name here, pretend it was a database lookup, all of this is in the same location. Okay, no MVC structure. Okay. Here we're doing a listen. We're doing every so often, second looking says, did anybody send me a route? Did anybody send me a route? Okay, and once it does, this is what it's going to implement here as far as the route. Okay, here's what, now looking at here, was my previous structure. If I actually use this one up. Here was my previous structure. Here's my new structure, okay, based on MVC. As you notice here, I have the application, I have the routes, and under the routes, I have my home route. Okay, then I have controllers, and I have the home controller. I have the models, and I have under that the models. Okay. Here I have the views. So I put that information that has to do with layouts and vision and under the views. Okay, and then home HBS. The key thing here is, and what some of the argument is, okay, for a small application, having all of these particular routes, it seems like it's overkill. Okay. But as things get bigger and bigger and bigger, knowing that I can go to the routes folder and find all my routes versus having to go to a folder and figuring out where my routes are, okay, which could be anywhere. This is more structured. This applies and lets us so in talking about this, about the MVC and the routing, you can see from this particular pictorial here how the organization kind of splices things and put things in a logical order to where the when we need to search for some information, when we need to know where it is, we know exactly where it is, depending on whether it's a a view, okay, whether it's controller, whether it's model. Model is the rules, controller is the action, and view is the site. Okay, so why MVC? Okay, why model view controller? The pros: maintainability, test tables, testable test tables. Yeah, it's getting late tonight. It's scalable, team friendly. The cons that we talked about is more files than maybe you think you need. Feels heavier for quick demos. Quick mapping to your code. Your handlebars, templates are in the views. Your route handlers are in the controllers. Okay, so it's kind of separated out nicely as to where everything is. Your database file, HTTP calls, all that's in the models folder. So nice and easy. Okay. Okay, so that's basically it. We've talked about the routes, and we talked about passing parameters with the routes in order to do things. We talked about the handlebars templates as far as when I have HTML, how I can substitute information dynamically into the HTML to change how everything looks on the fly. And we talked about the MVC, the model view controller concept, as far as keeping, things that have to do with viewing separate from things that have to do with logic versus things that have to do with control. So we keep that stuff separate. And so basically that gives us, especially as the application grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and we get more information that we're putting in these various slots, how this enables us to keep track of things easier and better. Okay, thanks a lot. Any questions you need, just give me a call or a text or an email, and we'll work our way through it. Everybody have a good one.